Do you want to hear this show 1 week early and without the ads? Check out Stitcher Premium. They have a great holiday deal going on for a limited time that you will not want to miss. Get 30% off Stitcher Premium when you go to stitcherpremium.com/premium and use the promo code JINGLE. Stitcher Premium also gives you access to hundreds of exclusive shows, bonus episodes, and comedy albums. Try it out for yourself. Go to stitcher.com/premium and use the promo code JINGLE for 30% off. Previously on Heaven's Gate.
Only once every 2,000 years does the next level open its door, open its gate, and allow you to come in.
I remember, standing out in my backyard, looking up at the sky, asking for contact, for connection.
Both of us wanted to leave this earth. We didn't like it here. We didn't feel like we belonged here.
We all prepared to stay up all night, if necessary, to wait for the spacecraft.
They're demonstrating to humanity that extraterrestrial technology can change human bodies into extraterrestrial beings.
Change. It's just like that caterpillar has to drop.
We're getting down to the nitty-gritty here, people. This is what we're all about, and you either want to see this through to the end, or maybe this isn't the place for you.
Coming for us.
There is something really big out there. I have no idea what it is, but it is not a camera flare. Whatever it is, it's real, and it is awfully big.
The world had just discovered the Hale-Bopp comet, hurtling into view. And now as sci-fi fans around the Earth were peering at it and photographing it, one of those pictures seemed to show something in the background. Another huge, unidentified object flying right behind Hale-Bopp.
Well, Professor, what the hell is that?
This object is approximately four times, the size of the planet Earth, and it's headed our way. And they're very serious about this event, which may be happening. That this event may go in a direction which is not evolutionary, but only time will tell, and time is of the essence.
Members of Heaven's Gate were listening in on Art Bell that night. They weren't confused at all, Cass. And the stories you'll hear today are also the beginning of the end of the group. The violence that would eventually sweep the group from the earth begins to erupt in a context that's hard to even talk about. But throughout, the kindness of the group, one member to another, and the sweetness they showed each other persists. You'll hear about how much thought they gave to their goodbyes. But to get to all of that, we start with the comet. And 1996 was a heady moment for space fans. A professional astronomer named Alan Hale and an amateur named Thomas Bopp had separately discovered this gigantic comet headed past Earth.
Around the world, astronomers have been searching the night sky.
Okay, we got the comet.
A ball of ice, the Hale-Bopp comet is 25 miles across and weighs millions of tons. And the closer it gets to the sun, the brighter it gets.
Hale-Bopp will become visible to the naked eye for 18 months, which is also super unusual. The last time we had a comet of this scale visible for this long was 1811, and people felt like something special was happening.
Astronomers say it's like looking at part of the distant past.
You're seeing bits and pieces of the solar system as it existed 4 or 5 billion years ago.
Like the galaxy was making contact in a way it usually doesn't.
Through history, comets have been seen as predictors of great events, part of the beauty and the mystery of our universe.
So, into this frenzied moment, in comes Art Bell. And Bell's not your regular radio host. He's the wizard of the weird, a friend of the cryptozoological.
4 pictures of what is said to be a chupacabra from Mexico on my webpage now. And they are the doggonest things you've ever seen.
Bell's a conspiracy theorist and a good listener to whatever sounds amazing, and Hale-Bopp was red meat for Art Bell.
Well, all right. Now, to Chuck Schrammett. Boy, I hope I'm saying that correctly. In Houston, Texas. Chuck, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Art. Pleasure to be here.
Schrammett is an amateur photographer and astronomer, and he'd been looking at the comet through his 10-inch telescope.
You have just taken a photograph. When did you take it? Tonight?
I took it at 6 o'clock this evening.
6 o'clock. All right. In this newest photograph you've taken, Hale-Bopp's going to come round the horn and be most visible April, May, something like that next year, right?
March, April 97.
All right. And I guess we all knew that, but a lot of people have felt something's going on with Hale-Bopp.
Well, I have too. There's been a real lack of pictures from the Hubble Space Telescope or any big observatories. And Art, I can tell you when they cut them off. It was about May, end of May, 96. And so that got me all the more curious. I can smell when they're
Why would they do that?
Perhaps they saw something they felt might disturb people.
And now maybe you've got it on film.
Yeah, although this thing, what I photographed tonight, just showed up. I mean, I have pictures of the comet from last night and the night before. This is a big thing. Not far, I estimate maybe about 150,000 miles away from Hale-Bopp.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It appears to be several times larger than the Earth. And there appears to be what looks like Saturn-like rings. They're very flat. It's almost as if we're looking at them on edge. And, you know, I ran inside. I thought, no, it's just a star. And I have a computer-generated star map. I can tell ahead of time what stars are going to be in the background.
Right.
And there was no star there. I mean, just nothing. And my heart starts going faster.
What could it be?
I have no idea.
That photograph, ladies and gentlemen, is now on our website. We're going to ask Courtney Brown here in a few moments what it's all about. Maybe he can help. I suspect he can. Professor Courtney Brown. Professor, did you hear Chuck?
I heard it, and I was actually delighted. He was a delightful guest and had lots of information from an astronomical point of view.
Now, yes, Courtney Brown is a PhD, but he's also written books on Bigfoot, Atlantis, the Great Pyramids, 9/11. You get the idea.
Well, Professor, what the hell is that?
This object is approximately four times, the size of the planet Earth, and it's headed our way. And they're very serious about this event, which may be happening, going in a direction which is not that this event may go in a direction which is not evolutionary, but only time will tell, and time is of the essence. There is a message being sent to someone who is listening but not hearing. It is essential that this person or persons wake up and listen now. Help will be there when he does.
So somebody here is being sent a message.
Art Bell and Dr. Courtney Brown are saying that the maybe possibly a spaceship behind the comet was definitely a message that needed decoding.
We're listening but not understanding.
And at that moment, in a mansion outside San Diego, one listener thought that he understood. His name was Tall Odie, or Michael Carrier before he joined Heaven's Gate. Doe called him Tall Odie because he stood taller than everyone else in the group. Tall Odie was an Art Bell fan and had been listening to Art's theories about the new comet for a while. And maybe that night, he was lying in his cot in one of the house's 7 bedrooms, perhaps sitting in his assigned seat in the big living room full of plastic lawn chairs. Or maybe Tall Odie was leaning on the kitchen island, hearing Art Bell's voice echo off the stone tiles. We don't know. Afterward, Tall Odie rushed to tell Doe what he'd heard. Doe listened, and after careful consideration, he agreed. The sign was there. The ship had come. The gate to heaven was opening, and if Doe and his followers were going to slip through, they would need to move fast. I should tell you that the quote-unquote object behind the comet was not detectable in all the other gazillion photographs of this comet, but still, the Heaven's Gate crew were not troubled with doubt. It's December 22nd, 1996, 98 days before the Heaven's Gate suicides. This is the first day heavensgate.com appears online. Around that time in Chico, California, Nancy Brown is trying to figure out the internet. Nancy thinks it might be a new window into her son's group.
And so I had a computer, and I wasn't terribly experienced with it, and I wasn't on the internet. So I took a one-day class at the adult school about how to access and use the internet. So I had found this Heaven's Gate site, and then it's a red alert was flashing on the screen. Red alert, red alert, red alert.
Nancy's right. The webpage has been blinking that same red alert for 20 years. Here's our resident scholar, Ben Zeller.
Yeah, we have to remember this was the 90s, so flashing GIF icons were all the rage. So it's flashing red alert. It sort of shoots out at you at the very top of the page. Red alert. It's in a sort of a Comic Sans font. Red alert. Hail bop. That's all in red. Red alert. Hail bop brings closure to Heaven's Gate. Whether Hail bop has a companion or not is irrelevant from our perspective. However, its arrival is joyously very significant to us at Heaven's Gate. The joy is that our older member in the evolutionary level above human, the kingdom of heaven, has made it clear to us that Hale-Bopp's approach is the marker we've been waiting for, the time for the arrival of the spacecraft from the level above human, to take us home to their world, to the literal heavens. Our 22 years of classroom here on planet Earth is finally coming to conclusion. Graduation from the human evolutionary level. We are happily prepared to leave this world and go with T's crew.
The page overflows with words. It's studded with links and transcripts and documentation. Imagine a day has come when everything you've wanted to say for 22 years is suddenly relevant and meaningful to everyone you meet. That's the energy coming off heavensgate.com.
You know, to unpack this a bit, they've been talking about graduating. They've been talking about being in a classroom for 2 decades. And here it is. I mean, so in some ways, if, you know, when you're listening to this, you should be nodding your head and saying, yeah, this is what they said when they started in the 70s, that we're out of here. On the other hand, there's something radically new here. And that is this idea that Hale-Bopp Comet has a companion. It has a marker. That is the new change. That's what brings about the end.
We're going to talk to you about the most urgent thing that is on our mind, and what we suspect is the most urgent thing on the minds of those who will connect with us.
Doe made this video shortly after Heaven's Gate learned about the coming of Hale-Bopp, and Doe's perspective is certain.
We'll title this tape, Planet Earth About to be Recycled. Your only chance to evacuate is to leave with us.
Doe and his followers were ready to tell the world it's now or never.
I'll tell you about a kingdom level beyond here, and if you want to go there, then you have to follow me, because I'm the guy who's got the key at the moment. This is your chance. I'm here.
And Doe is clearly so excited to be leaving.
I can take you out of here. I can lead you into that kingdom level above human. That can't happen unless you leave the human world that you're in and come and follow me. Time is short. Last chance.
And the confidence Doe shows in this video, he has good reason for it. Since 1994, Doe's followers have made great sacrifices to prove their devotion. They'd shown they wanted nothing more than to rise above their humanness, and they would do it through pain and through violence, through whatever they thought was necessary to get to the next level. More on that right after the break. We're back. And you'll remember that from the beginning of Heaven's Gate, From the moment Bonnie Lou Nettles and Herb Applewhite ran into each other in a Texas hospital, the idea was to rise above the earth. The goal was to divest yourself of human attachments, of relationships and addictions, and you want to replace those base desires in yourself with dedication to God. That's what the next level required. Sex wasn't just frowned upon or just a sin. It was a barrier to heaven. And if you wanted to graduate with dough and meet Jesus on that spaceship, you needed to free yourself from lustful urges. But any human being in the history of human beings can tell you that is easier said than done. Group members struggled with their sexual desire for years. And at some point, around 1986, Doe wondered aloud whether something physical could be done to stem these urges, at least for the male group members. Now, Doe didn't push it, but the idea didn't go away either. By the early 1990s, men in the group were pleading with Doe to let them castrate themselves. Sawyer was one of them.
Myself and Surodi and Parkody ended up petitioning Doe to have the procedure. But Doe told me, he said he doesn't have any instructions to allow us to do that, so not to do it.
Meaning that Bonnie Lou, had not sent Doe a signal from the heavens to let people castrate themselves.
But then from there on, whenever I had the feeling about it, I would say to him, you know, I still feel like I want to take you up on that option if it becomes an option that you feel instructed to offer us. I felt like I was proving my devotion to T and Doe in the next level by showing them that I was willing to do anything to accomplish the task, to qualify for next level membership. A year or so later, he called up the craft.
Meaning, Doe used the telephone.
And he asked to talk to me and Surodi. And he said, come to our craft. And Livodi was going to do the operation.
I need to tell you, this gets graphic.
Livodi did, because Livodi worked for an orchiectomist, somebody that removes the testicles for cancer. So she learned the procedure of getting rid of the testicles. And so she accumulated all the utensils for that, the tools. And so he said, who's going to go first? But before that, he asked me if I had any reservations. And I said, my vehicle is not looking forward to it, but I'm overriding my vehicle. So Livodi and Janodi thought, well, flip a coin, because that was what we did when we had something like that to decide, that there was no right answer. And so we flipped a coin, and whoever would flip the coin to win would decide whether they wanted to go first or not. And they flipped the coin, Surodi won the toss, and he decided to go first.
You saw it?
Yeah, I was standing right there next to Doe. Doe was right here. This was the table. Surodi was sitting at it. Livodi was there. Janodi was her assistant, standing where you are.
Uh-huh.
Doe was right here, standing here on this side of the table. I was standing right where I am. We witnessed everything.
Again, heads up to the squeamish.
And the incision and the snipping and the cauterizing, and then putting in a vent, which is like a little plastic tube, maybe about a 1/2 inch diameter, that came to a point on one side, and then the sac started to get bigger and bigger, and he started to moan. His his testicle sac blew up like a balloon, maybe like about that big. It blew up because after she made the incision and cut the cords for the testicles and took the testicles out, which I almost fainted when it happened.
Was that instantly? That was right after the operation?
Yeah. And so Liv Odie came over to there and she tried to figure out what was going wrong, what was happening. And she thought maybe that the vents weren't letting anything out, so that the gas was building up inside there, and the fluids and stuff. And so she took the vents out and she tried to open it up a little better to redo those incisions. And it didn't change it. And it got worse. It got bigger.
It's blowing up at this point.
Yeah, it's getting bigger, and he's in more pain from it. So Doe was really upset, and he said, I've done a horrible thing. He wasn't crying, but he says, take me to the police. And Liv Odie and Jan Odie and I and Sir Odie was out of it. We said, no way. He said, we'll take care of it.
This feels important. This procedure, all of it, was set in motion by the world that T and Doe created. Doe himself was the first to say he wanted to castrate himself to clear the path to heaven. But he backed away from that. And it's his students who urged him to move forward. And in this moment of crisis, of horror, Doe shrinks and shakes and says, this was a mistake. And his group says, no. Be quiet. It's okay. We're fine. We'll take care of it. And I think the only thing scarier than being the leader of a group and realizing you've made a terrible mistake is being part of that group. And hearing your leader say, he did something terribly wrong, and realizing, yeah, he's right. Regardless, in this moment, Doe's group sprang into action.
And we tried to figure out what to do. And so we decided to. And we got a motel that was near a hospital. And I called a priest to ask them if they knew how to handle any kind of implications, because maybe they had experience with it. Because maybe some priest would do that. Anyway, that was the idea we had. So I called the priest, and they didn't know anything about it. And we were also concerned whether it was legal or not. And so we were trying to stay hidden about it all. We didn't know what else to do, so we decided to take him to the hospital. And we decided that I was going to just go into the hospital with him. And Liv and Jenny were going to stay in the car. And then I was going to come out and tell them, report to them so they could report to Doe. And so I went to the hospital, and they took him in, and it wasn't a big emergency. So I told him that he was admitted, and I didn't know what the results would be. But then the nurse came out and told me that he was fine. They just redid the incision and took care of it. And I reported back and to Liv Odie and Jan Odie, and the nurses ended up loving Sir Odie because he's a great guy, and he was happy. He was glad it happened, and he came out of that, and he was elated.
He told you that?
Oh yeah, I was his partner because we weren't instructed to tell anybody else. Not that we would have anyway, but Doe wanted to make sure that we weren't telling anybody else until he was ready to tell everybody, and he did a little while after that. But for a while, people started noticing that Sir Odie was extra giddy and he was losing the hair on his arms.
After Sir Odie did this and had the complications from the procedure, and Doe asked you all not to tell anyone, some other people were given permission to go ahead and do it as well after that.
I know it doesn't make sense in our culture, in the human culture as we see it, but actually it's not that unusual of a thought. It's not extreme to get a vasectomy. it's not extreme to have other things done, to our bodies to enhance our bodies, or to inject Botox into our lips and do all these other things that change our biology. But that one is like taboo. In fact, Doe talked about that, how that's almost worse than death for some people. It's to think that you were going to get rid of your sexuality entirely is like taboo in the human cult.
Sawyer was never castrated. And after he left the group, he had a child whom he loves dearly. But the fact that Sawyer almost went through with it doesn't haunt him.
No, I didn't dodge a bullet. I mean, had I had the castration done, then I would have had some other test. Or maybe I would have ended up being with them. But either way, it's the same thing in the sense that I was put to the test. And it was either I was going to pass the test or I was going to be pushed out because I wasn't ready to go the full distance.
8 men in Heaven's Gate chose to be castrated between 1994 and 1996. Doe was one of them, and apparently he had a long and painful recovery. The thing to remember about these castrations, though, is that they weren't for the next level. Not exactly. Because the aliens weren't going to come and inspect the bodies of Heaven's Gate followers or even come near them. Now, when the aliens arrived, they would lift the group's spirits out of their bodies and award them new celestial bodies to live in, fresh and perfect. So the castrations were more about getting by on Earth while you waited to be saved. They were a way to ease one lifelong burden while you waited for Jesus and his spacecraft to come and rid you of the other ones. This is the group that heard the news about Hale Bopp in 1996. They were sure what they wanted, and they were ready. These 38 people were Doe's devoted few, and Doe's last task was to lead them off the planet in the right way. That's in a minute. We're back. I remember those days and weeks in 1997 when Hale Bopp was getting brighter. There was even a time when you could see the comet during the daylight. It was like a bright smudge in the sky. I still remember grabbing a telescope just to see a little bit more. It still looked like a bright smudge, but I didn't do the research that Doe and his followers did. I didn't find out the exact month and day and time that the comet would come closest to the Earth before slingshotting back out into the blackness. March 22nd, 1997 was that day. On March 22nd, 1997 was when the 39 members of Heaven's Gate planned to leave their earthly bodies and get on the spaceship hiding behind the comet. October 1996, T-minus 5 months, the group moves into their mansion outside San Diego. And it's big. 7 bedrooms, room for everybody if they use bunk beds. It's also fancy. A Spanish-style building that's a tennis court, a swimming pool, a putting green, an elevator, a private citrus grove. They pay the rent in cash, $7,000 a month. In January, T-minus 2 months, they buy 50 patches, like arm patches. They order them special to read Earth Exit Monasteries. In February, T-minus 1 month, they withdraw $5,400 from their bank account and take a group trip to Vegas. They do things that you and I might. They stay at the Stratosphere Hotel and Casino on the north end of the Strip. They go on a free-fall ride called the Big Shot. And they gamble.
Come on, drop. Come on, you guys, drop.
Later, the members write down what they won in Vegas. $58.91. They also found $2.28 in change and $20 in bills. All the good luck, it all gets logged in the books. But they also go to a Buddhist monastery and have a lovely conversation there with the monk all about his robes.
So that has fleece inside?
Many questions about the robes.
No zippers? Buttons?
And then on February 20th, the group buys yards and yards of black and purple fabric for their new uniforms. They'll only wear the uniforms once, but they assume the clothes will be seen by thousands, maybe millions of people, so they choose carefully. March 1st, T-minus 22 days, they buy matching Nike sneakers, Decade Edition, black with a white swoosh. 39 pairs for $548.45. In a few weeks, Nike will announce they're discontinuing that style. The group also keeps paying its bills. They send in the rent. They pay a library fine of $2.50. They give $2 to a homeless person, all recorded in the ledgers. Also in March, they have a change of heart and alter those 50 arm patches. Rather than Earth Exit Monasteries, they change them instead to say, Away Team. The group has always loved Star Trek. Away teams on Star Trek were the intrepid adventurers that captains set down to explore a planet before they were called back to the ship. And this is, of course, exactly how the Heaven's Gate members see themselves. Also in March, the group takes day trips and videotapes them. You can see how fond the away team really is of the planet they're about to leave. They go to the Wild Animal Park in San Diego, and they ooh and ah along with the crowd at the bird show.
Believe it or not, this is a very natural and primitive form of meat tenderization.
They go to SeaWorld and ooh and ah at the trainer trying to stand on the back of two dolphins. They also go to the Gold Coast and visit a river T and Doe camped alongside in the early days.
And this is where we stayed, right here, and we went right off there down into the water.
It's lush and green and raining a bit, and the group heads to the seaside to feed the sea lions.
Hey, you guys, come on. It's time to consume.
And you can hear how patient and sweet they are with each other.
What if you wave your arms up and down real wildly? I think that'll get them coming down the hills. Come on. Come on.
We're trying to feed you guys.
Come on.
March 19th, T-minus 3 days. They record their exit videos, their final messages to the world. Most of these were shot in the backyard of that mansion, on green grass, sitting in white plastic lawn chairs. The members are all dressed similarly, in baggy shirts with their short haircuts. They don't seem comfortable with the spotlight on them, but they don't seem like they're trying to escape it either. This is a big moment, and most of them have been thinking of what to say to the camera for days, or months, maybe years. Some say they are elated.
This is the happiest day of my life. I mean, I've been looking forward to this for so long.
This is Sorority, or Stephen McCarter, as he was known before the group.
Some would probably sit here and, I mean, somebody on the other side of this camera watching this tape would probably say, what's going on? You know, you all must not have a life, or you're deluded, or you're brainwashed, or whatever the thinking might be. It's hard to tune into. From our perspective, from my perspective, this is godsend. I mean, this is the answer to everything.
The members know These tapes are the last answers anyone who loved them is going to get, the final explanation for the choices they've made.
Do we really hate our mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers? Do we really feel that way?
This is Melody, or Margaret Richter, as her family knew her.
I think one thing you have to realize that each of us, in order to succeed at this task, has to know that we are the next level mind inside this vehicle. We have to totally identify as a child of the next level, see ourselves as part of that family, and know that that's who we are, that everything that was the vehicle is behind us and it isn't us. The attachments that each of these vehicles had were very real. For each of us, there were things that we cared about. There were individuals that the vehicle respected and loved and cared for very much. And in making the decision that we made to do this, we know that we broke hearts. We know that we hurt people. And we don't take that lightly. We didn't want to hurt anyone. Unfortunately, it's the individuals that these vehicles cared for the most that are actually the greatest threat to us. And as a next level mind with an allegiance to an older member and wanting to succeed at this task, we had to be very aware that influences would take our vulnerabilities, those things that we cared about, and use them against us. And if they could, they would make us look backwards and forget where we were going. And that happened to a lot of our classmates. I mean, we're sorry to say that there are many that were with us that chose to give up an eternity of service with their Creator, closeness, and an opportunity to be the fullest, to reach the fullest potential that their Creator imagined for them, and they gave it up for a few months or years of closeness to another human. And we prayed for the strength that we not do the same thing. We wanted to reach that potential.
Some of the statements are more emotional than others, but all the members seem resolute in what they're about to do. And for a few, the moment could not come sooner.
I want to say that Nerodi is of sound mind.
This is Nerodi, or Susan Pope.
And I'm really glad that I'm going to be losing this vehicle, shedding it of my own volition, because I'm really tired of this world and what it has become. I feel no bitterness. I feel extreme gratitude and thankfulness to my older members, T and Do. I know that all these words have been said before, but it's true. It's just a painful experience to recognize that hideousness has become the norm and that people accept it out of ignorance because they've been programmed, and a lot of it is not their fault, but it is their choice. Each person has a choice to make, and I've made mine, and I'm very happy and that I was given the opportunity to have this choice. And I feel very, very excited about this time and that we'll finally be able to leave as a class together. We've all worked very hard and we've all tried to prove to our older members that we're worthy of the effort and sacrifice they made.
Thank you. That's all we really have to say.
Not everyone shares, but they all have the chance. And when they're done, they turn the camera off. They leave their $7,000 a month mansion and they head out for pizza. They pay the bill of $417.27, and they catch a showing of the movie Secrets and Lies, starring Brenda Blethyn. It's a sweet movie about a long-lost family and regret. Friday, March 21st, at 2 p.m. they go to Marie Callender's in Carlsbad. They stay for less than 45 minutes. They pay the $350 bill in cash. They go home. 2 members find 6 cents. They enter it into the group books. It's the last entry in their financial ledger. Saturday, March 22nd, the comet Hale-Bopp finally reaches its closest distance to Earth. For the last time, the members of Heaven's Gate sign out of the group's log. the book they've written in for years, every time they've left their home base, each member was supposed to write their name, how much money they have, and when they're expected back. Ben Zeller has a copy.
It's haunting every time I pick this up. So I'm looking here at the Comm Center Daily Log. On Saturday, March 22nd, 1997, as the suicides are beginning, they all sign out for the final time from the Comm Center Daily Log. Bernotti was the first to do it at 8:49 p.m. The last was Windoti, 7:20 p.m. So over approximately, almost 2 hours, hour and 40 minutes, each member of the group writes their name. They check off that they have their ID and their passport. They enter their time that they're signing out. And there's a column here which says estimated time to return, ETR. And so normally in a conventional day, they would say, I'm leaving at 8 a.m. to go to work, earn some sticks. I'm going to come back at 5 p.m. or I'm going to return a library book, whatever it is. When they were signing out on this final day before their exits or their suicides, I'm just looking down this column. I see some question marks. I see some blanks. I see some dashes. And I see some words. Avnoti wrote never. Doroti wrote bye. Taloti wrote so long. Slavoti wrote never. My favorite here is Hasta la Vista Baby from Glynn. And then probably the most profound of this is at the very bottom. And the penmanship, I can't really tell exactly who wrote this. I think it's Dustoti. And wrote down, if instructed by T and Doe, as the time to return. So they were signing out of the planet. They were saying that they were leaving. And most of them said they were never going to return, or they would return only if T and Doe sent them back. It doesn't take 2 hours for 40 people, basically, to sign their names. That takes, 2 minutes? So this was a ritual. This was a ritual moment of departure. If you look at each time, there's about 2 to 5 minutes between each time. I like to imagine that they said something. I don't know, and I should be honest that I don't know. I wasn't there. Everyone who was there is gone. But I like to imagine that in those 1 to 4 minutes between each person signing out, that they said something. Or maybe they thought it. Or maybe silently as they walked up to sign out, just going through their head, they thought about what they were doing. We don't know what they did, but we know they did it with ceremony. We know that there was no reason they had to sign out on this daily log, and they chose to. This was a ceremonial, ritual end of their lives.
These last moments together, the group logged, but did not videotape. They kept what happened for themselves. Next time, on the final episode of Heaven's Gate.
You're looking at the site where 39 young men have been found dead and believed to be in a religious...
The 3 previous nights at 8 p.m. exactly, the phone rang. Each time, by the time I got to the phone, whoever was there had hung up.
My thought initially when I heard of the suicides is, well, maybe they went to the next level.
I think anyone who had been part of that group, if they claim that they still believe in it, I think that's probably a question they'd ask themselves almost on a daily basis. What am I doing here? Basically, the kind of the ultimate question.
Please, don't look at my classmates and don't look at me as having died. We have not died. We have simply moved out of these vehicles.
So we have this talent show, and they're all bringing whatever talents they have.
We're going to juggle.
It is heartening to see this, because not even 4 months later, in the very same rooms in which they're laughing, their bodies, their vehicles are lying dead.
I know they were not doing it out of any manipulation. I knew it was their joy to do that, even though it was a difficult joy. And it had, the sadness was part of it, was that they knew the world was going to respond as if they were manipulated by this evil person.